Morning, morning, morning.
I've drifted too. From Maine
To Albuquerque. Hey, a little bit of Sammy Davis Jr. live at the Sands. I think that was 1968. That recording is awesome recording of Lady and the Tramp. Check it out. Live from Las Vegas. It's a Capitol recording. Hey, lots of news today. Lots of stuff to go over today. We'll be talking about VRM, their new contract, best asset chargebacks. But before we get there, Rich Rue, haven't heard from you in a while, guy. Hello, how you doing, man? Rich made a comment. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. He pointed something out that I overlooked on the insurance. And this is one of the big problems I have with the way this industry is structured for insurance. E&O insurance based on revenue. Now, I want to ask you something for just a minute. You've never been in business before, so they give you an E&O insurance policy, $500 they charge you for the year. I'm grabbing numbers out of thin air. Okay, don't quote me on these numbers. But let's say for $500 you get this E&O insurance this year and you do $1 million worth of revenue. And they're okay with that. They say, oh, that's no problem. You didn't have any incidents. Now, next year, you do $5 million in business. No incidents. No nothing. Your rates are going to go up? Huh? You just proved 5 times over you're a good company. If anything, you did 5 times more work, no incidents, great safety record, no claims, no nothing. Shouldn't you get a break? Shouldn't you get rewarded for being a good company? Your insurance rate shouldn't go up. Just food for thought. But Rich, thank you for the comment. And he is correct. E&O is based on total revenues. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what I call negotiating leverage. And what I just said is negotiating leverage. If you have more business and no incidents, if anything, you should be rewarded. You're starting to see this happen with auto insurance now. Well, you've had no accidents here. We'll give you a 5% rebate on your premiums for the year. I think that's cool. I'm not sure which insurance. It's the guy with the big deep voice. Shut up, Steve. Yeah. Or we know the guy got a helmet instead of a new bike. Yeah. But that, and maybe we'll see that enter into the E&O insurance. By the way, E&O, as some people have said, oops, insurance. Before we get to best assets in VRM, I want to talk a little bit about the chargeback scenarios going on in the area, in property preservation. Some information from, what is it? That little cutie pie over there in West Virginia. Are you in the Richmond, Virginia area? You need preservation work? You need a property management company? Kim Savage, Women at Work Incorporated. You can't beat them. I'm telling you, that girl's good. But let's get into chargebacks here for just a minute. It's her group over there, or I shouldn't say her group. It is a community group. She just happens to be the manager. She started it years ago when we needed to get out of the tunnel of LinkedIn and get a little more exposure to what's going on in the industry. And it... What is the name of her group? Property Preservation Companies Information Exchange. Scott, if I misenunciate your name, I apologize. Scott St. Hilaire posed a question. How many of you take your chargebacks and submit to insurance carrier? What has been your experience? And of course, industry shill Mark Conley. My humble opinion, he's an industry shill because I have yet to hear one thing come out of his mouth in the last 7 years that supported labor. You know it, Mark, and so does everybody else that's been around the industry for quite some time. You bang labor like they're idiots, and we are not. Go back and talk to Jack. He'll take care of you. Don't worry. Larry Harris asked the question, why would you submit chargeback to your insurance? And of course, Scott said, why do you have insurance if it's not going to protect you? Good point, Scott. Good point. But there was a little back and forth between Larry and Scott about, according to Larry, he's been in the industry over 10 years. And Larry, I'm sorry, but if you haven't seen an illegal back charge in 10 years, you got blinders on, dude. I see them every day. You got blinders on. I'm sorry. And look, I don't know any of these people. I'm just going off of what, so I'm not taking sides. I'm not trying to, put anybody down or anything, but I'm just kind of pointing out the obvious outside looking in, if you will. Let me see. And Scott said something. I want to point this out to everybody, and I'm going to mention this again, negotiating leverage. Scott made a very, 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 very good point. I will never mention specific companies because it's bad business. Yes and no, but in this particular instance, yes. And this is why. The only other person, I'm going to guarantee you right now, anybody reading this thread, if it's a company Scott's talking about, they already know. So when Scott calls back, negotiating leverage. Negotiating leverage. Reputation is everything, ladies and gentlemen. And when people know that there is a threat, no matter how minimal, of that reputation being damaged, they have a tendency to listen and pay attention just a little bit more. But I will never mention specific company's bad business. I will say we received an $8,500 chargeback on a trip charge, saying we did not bid damages and had. First and foremost, it doesn't matter if you bid the damages or not. That is an illegal back charge. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. That is illegal. How do I know that's illegal? Same thing happened to me with the siblings. Remember them guys up there? I think they're in Michigan, 5 brothers. We went to a property. They asked me to submit a bid. The bid was over my head. I wasn't licensed to do the work. I said, hey, you need a general contractor. You need somebody with a different license. They needed overhead garage doors. They needed roof work done. Foundation work needed to be done. Plumbing work, electrical work, everything that required skilled trades. I am not, for nothing, going to coordinate that job. Simple as that. The bid was over my company's head, and I told them that. That is what we put in writing. I got a $4,000 back charge on that because, we have to pay somebody else to go do it now. Excuse me? You didn't pay me to begin with. I liened the property. About 2 hours after the judge made the ruling that I was in the right, guess who called? Another scenario on back charges that I know is illegal happened with whom? FAS. That's right. The loser of the latest employee independent contractor scenario in the industry. Here's what happened. They asked us for a favor. Can you drive way over here and do this for us? We can't find anybody. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Lousy bitch charged me back for a janitorial service. 8 months after we were paid. I didn't argue with them. I liened the property. Liened the property. Got my money back the next day. This is what an IRS agent, and I don't care, you guys all need to pull your head out of your butts on this. Stop arguing. You have nothing to lose. Nothing, absolutely nothing to lose by doing this. And this is from an IRS agent. when the scenarios were laid out on chargebacks and some of the ways they're doing it, that's illegal. They can't do that. He goes, how are they getting away with that? Nobody does anything about it. He goes, they need to be filing 1099. $8,500, push a 1099 back on them. Whether, and this is the crux here, it doesn't matter if you can or cannot. A copy of the 1099 goes to the IRS. Bingo! Up goes the red flags on that company doing the chargeback. This is what is going on, ladies and gentlemen. That is a revenue stream, an illegal revenue stream, because nobody is filing on it. Nobody is claiming on it. I have seen people in social media bragging about the total. Oh, it's nothing. I get back charged $140,000 a year. You're a moron for not filing a 1099 on $140,000. That's what I'll say right now. You're an idiot. That's stupid. That's not business. That's being somebody's lackey, for crying out loud. For crying out loud. But Larry Harris did point something out. Working for someone that continues chargebacks, even when you are in the right, is bad business. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. And I know MCS, MSI, Safeguard, Cypress, all these companies will go back into a past year and charge you back. MCS is notorious for tapping people's E&O after they quit. That's insurance fraud, number one. Nobody complains. Nobody files a case on them. Nobody pushes back. You have to push back. You have to, I'm sorry, but I keep trying to be diplomatic, but there's just no way to do this. The membership of NAMFS, under the supervision of Eric Miller, for whatever reason, has decided they can do no wrong. They purposely recruit from general labor sections of employment websites. They don't go into business opportunities. Think about that for a minute. They're recruiting individuals that are looking for work. And normally, my experience, if I'm looking for a job, I got bills to pay, and you know what? I may take the $10 an hour job just to get something done right now and look for something better down the road. They walk all these people, they blow their head up, they make them feel good. Oh, you're going to be a business person, blah, 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 blah. And then they start beating them up on back charges. And because these people don't understand the nuances of business administration and business itself, they get beat up. This is why I think International Association of Field Service Technicians is going to be a different type of trade association in the industry, ladies and gentlemen. They look a little bit more towards labor. Now, here's some food for thought. Food for thought. A while back, there was a thing about PPI stores, property preservation stores. Let's think about this. If you had a trade association and everybody got together and they coordinated everything good, instead of sending, I have actually had Goodwill. We had one house, I had Goodwill and the Salvation Army there with 20-yard box trucks that we were loading up. That's how much stuff was left in these houses. Not that these are bad organizations, but why give them all that stuff to make money if it could be used with an organization to help, say, finance the legal department? So when they do these illegal back charges, the legal department, if you're a member of the association, can say, hey, boom, they can slap a piece of paper on them right now, bam, today, and stop it. Just food for thought, just food for thought. But me and Scott points out something very, 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 very telling. These people take your money. They do what they call a chargeback out of money you've earned. Okay? And they take it. They don't send you all your money on your check. That's stealing. That's stealing. Jess Klein said, chargebacks are sneaky. We even had a manager make up false flood in a home. According to him, he let $100 go. I would not have. I'd have put the screws to that guy and got him in court. Sorry. That's me. But Jess is right. The chargeback in the industry is a very convoluted situation, and I'm sorry, but everybody needs to pull their head out of their butt. Start pushing a 1099 back on these people, because a copy goes to the IRS. That opens investigation. That opens investigation. When I get done here today, this is going to Mr. Ben Carson over at HUD and Craig Karnes, because we're going to pick on them here in just a minute. But before I go, I got this one here. Rich Rue also was in this thread. Yes, they will defend, but there's a $2,500 deductible. If I lose, my premium will rise. And that's normally what happens when claims are made. Your premiums go up because it showed, especially on E&O or something. Well, E&O is oops insurance. And if you're having a lot of claims against your E&O, you're making a lot of oopsies. You know, that's not good business. So just something to think about. But, again, industry shill. Scott St. Hilaire. They told you chargebacks are illegal. You better find a good company that doesn't lie to you. Poppycock. Poppycock. I have an email into Cheryl Travis Johnson at VRM. Special announcement from Cheryl was made yesterday in a press release over, if I remember correctly, DS News. VMR or VRM Mortgage Service, they received a 10-year contract yesterday from the VA. Congratulations. My first question is this, and I'm going to dovetail this portion of today's podcast with the HUD issues going on. But first off, congratulations to VMR or VRM on this contract. That's a pretty good contract, a 10-year contract. And I got to think a VA contract for 10 years, somebody looked at this company and saw something they liked. 10 contracts for 10 years, well, you know, that little job security there, huh? Something to think about. But my question is this. In light of the fact that we have Hearst v. Boozecheck, Bowerman versus FAS, and coming up, Vincent versus AMS. And that's going to be a doozy there, ladies and gentlemen, because that AMS contract was a HUD contract, and there's different numbers going to be involved there. But the author of the article over there on DS News, Brianna Gilpin, she wrote this article yesterday, and I have some questions. I have an email into Miss Travis Johnson over there at VRM, asking if, number one, is preservation part of this contract? Is that part of the real estate services? Because they offer a whole menu of real estate services. But is that part of the deal? And if it is, here becomes my question that goes into HUD. I do not understand. I just looked something up this morning. In Nevada, we have 3 HUD offices, 2 in Vegas and 1 in Reno. So, and during the HUD contract bids, during those bids on the HUD contract, I only had one company call me. I don't know how many people bid the 4S contract, but I had a guy call me. I think Brian or it was either. I mean, I can't remember his name right off the hand. But perhaps the reason his company did not get the bid is because he talked to me. And this goes back to negotiating leverage, ladies and gentlemen. When you're doing contracts, there's negotiating going on. Best asset is having an issue delivering on the contract. They're finding out, hey, you know what? There's no volume there for us to set up a $100,000 office to facilitate this contract. Maybe we better bow out gracefully. That said, here's my question to you, Mr. Craig Karnes. Why are you holding bids in an office in Atlanta for work to be done in Nevada when you have an office in Nevada that can go out and recruit local talent? I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, I could show a workflow bubble diagram like this to Linda McMahon and Donald Trump, and they would tell somebody to pull their head out of their butt. That's how simple the solution is. Why? And I don't know best assets. And I don't think they're bad people or anything. But if we're truly going to take HUD contracts to small businesses, and here's my question, and this goes to Miss Travis Johnson too. How can anybody in Texas supervise Nevada and Idaho from an office in Texas? You can't. You can't properly do it. And this is why when the membership of NAMFS pyramided this industry, they collapsed it. They collapsed it. It's falling in on itself, and it's falling in very, very, very rapidly. And you can tell more and more and more scuttlebutt on back charges, chargebacks, however you want to phrase it, stealing your money. That conversation rises every day. And that tells me that here's the thing about Nevada. Nevada has 2.2 million or a little over 2 million people in it. Okay? 600,000 live in the Reno-Sparks area. 400 miles away down south, we have 1.2 million people. The other 200,000 people, ladies and gentlemen, they're scattered out over 100,000 square miles. Population density, you ain't got it here. This used to crack me up. We'll give you volume. We're going to give you volume. Don't worry about it. And I would tell them, I said, well, I'm sorry, but I have a population density of 4 people per square mile. How can you give me a volume on that? There's no volume here. You can't give me volume. Negotiating leverage. Information, negotiating leverage. These are things you need to look into and understand. The gentleman that called me about Nevada, I told him, I said, I don't know much about Idaho. You might want to contact Jimmy Shelley. He knows a lot about Idaho. He's there. And, you know, he's been going back. Jimmy Shelley's a good guy up there, man. He knows Idaho like the back of his hand. Now, Nevada, like I said, you got a population center in Reno. You got a population center 400 miles away in Las Vegas. The rest of the Nevada is like farm and ranch land. There's hardly anybody there. You got towns that have 5 people living in them. You got ghost towns. You got it's insane. Okay? So to tell me I have to take on a whole state that's 110,000 square miles. Here's my question to you, Mr. Karnes. Why aren't you contacting a company like, say, National Construction Management out of Las Vegas that already covers the state for other asset management companies and talk to them and say, hey, what can you do? Because that guy, you know, he's got people underneath him. He's got employees doing the work. He's got the stuff going on, but he's set up to do stuff. Why are we asking best asset to facilitate a contract they're going to lose money on? It makes no sense. Why isn't the office in Reno looking for, say, somebody like Donovan Construction that does preservation work, has great experience, and has a good track record? Why aren't they recruiting these small businesses, these businesses that have 10, 20, 30 people working for them? That's a small business. Could be wrong. But I think I might have stumbled onto something. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. And to Miss Travis Johnson, if we have, in light of the recent court cases on the preservation, end of things. Courts have said twice now. If you think they're going to say, if you think it's not going to go a third time when the AMS case comes in, you're sadly mistaken. Holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. Are you going to have, obviously VRM, I believe they're a nationwide service provider, but if they are, and they're going to be doing stuff, how are you going to address that issue of the employee independent contractor on the level? Because the email that came through the DS News article was training at VRM. Training at VRM. Employee status. Even though the disclaimer says it's not mandatory, you're providing training. It's that scenario, and that's what they look at. And in addition, it's a control issue. But my question is, why isn't anybody looking at this? Why is the board of directors of NEMFS continuing to allow companies to recruit instead of stopping and saying, hey, we got to have a conversation? We got to have a conversation. And my question it's like I said, we're tagging a couple people today on this over at HUD. Foreclosurepedia.org, ladies and gentlemen. Foreclosurepedia.org. You're up to the minute fraud reporting in the property preservation industry. In the property preservation industry. It is foreclosurepedia.org. And this is something for everybody to think about. A HUD contract, a VA contract. These are government contracts, ladies and gentlemen. They're government contracts. Fair Labor Standards Act falls into play, and so does the Service Contract Act. And this is what I don't understand. The best assets. I'm sorry to pick on you, but you're kind of the company out there right now in the wind in Nevada where I'm located. So, and again, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know the folks at Best Asset. I've never talked to anybody over there. I don't know. I'm not saying they're bad people. What I'm saying is the process in this entire industry needs to change, or there's going to be issues. Because if you think for 1 minute, agencies that rely on taxes are not going to step in and say, hey, we want our issue. Sadly mistaken, Mr. Miller. Sadly mistaken, Mr. Miller. When, Alpine companies. This is on their application. Are you eligible to work in the United States on a government contract? Are you willing to participate in a background check? Would you be willing to participate in a drug test as part of your application process? They are hiring employees. Now, I'm going to say this again. You hire Alliday LLC, you hire the company based on a reputation. I have already paid for background checks on my employees. I have already paid and vetted my employees because we established a reputation for being a go-to company that not only could get the job done, but get it done right the first time. And that was because I had company meetings once a month, once a week with supervisors, and we would do what a business does. So you're hiring Alliday LLC. You're not hiring my employees. And no, you don't get my employees' personal information to ship off to somebody in Ireland to do a background check. And call it compliance. I call it theft. I call it scam. They call it compliance. And if you're going to force my company and all my employees to be in compliance, which I already am because we are paying employees as employees, the people in the middle handling the money have to be in compliance too. Or did you forget about Mr. Hummel, Mr. Miller. Yeah, I've noticed MCS's chargebacks have kind of, they bought AMS, so they got to eat that. They got to eat that lawsuit, and they're going to, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to. So, Best Assets has discovered their bid is not going to cover the numbers. I'm kind of reading in between the lines there. That they may have a problem delivering on this contract and breaking even or showing a profit. Again, Craig Karnes, how come the HUD office in Reno isn't recruiting a local company for this contract? How come the HUD office in Vegas isn't recruiting a local company to get the job done? Giving somebody a contract, awarding a small business, a mom and pop shop, Best Asset. Again, I don't know anything about this company. I haven't done any research on them. I'm not saying Best Assets are bad people. Nobody think that. I don't know them. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this whole process is kittywampus. It's upside down. It's upside down. And it allows for graft. It allows for corruption. It allows for theft. That's what it does. Or you wouldn't see people like Scott St. Hilaire asking about chargebacks and how your insurance company. You wouldn't see questions like that. Go in other trade industry talk boards and see what's on their boards. See if you see the nonsense that you see in property preservation. You don't. Trust me, you don't. I'm going to say this again. Eric Miller, Brian Mingham, International Association of Field Service Technicians. I got to pick on you, Tony Newman. You're the chairman. You guys don't have an executive director like NAMFS does, or I'd be calling that individual out. So, Tony Newman, you get to take the brunt on this. Everybody got to come to the table, folks. You got to come to the table. You got to bring it to the table and talk. If this industry, if we as members of an industry don't sit down and discuss the parameters of court rulings, law, etc., guess who's going to do that for us? Oops. I know he's undoing regulations, but when agencies that rely on tax dollars, unemployment, Medicaid, Social Security, think about it. Think about it. Oh, and let's not forget the federal government and the state government if they have taxes. Think about it. That's all I'm saying. You guys got to think about this. Mr. Miller, Mr. Mingham, and Mr. Newman. Use a phony screen name and leave a comment down below. Get a conversation started. That's what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. Get the conversation started. It has to start somewhere. It has to start somewhere. But if we do not sit down and discuss the issues, the critical issues of this industry, and the biggest one is this labor issue with independent contractors and employees. That's the biggest issue in the industry. If those parameters aren't discussed and there isn't, the solutions are simple. They're right in front of everybody's face. But a little thing called pecuniary greed has taken over this industry, and the only way to make money is to sub the work out. How's that working out for you, Booze Check? How's that working out for you, Heather? How's that working out for you, FAS? Think about it, folks. Come on. Think about it, man. And I'm still baffled that a company like SAMJV LLC, who has a guy that's kind of tied to international weird organizations, how they got a contract, who vetted that issue? That's still kind of baffling. That is still kind of baffling. Drug testing is mandatory for prime contractors over $100,000, but interestingly, it does not flow down to subcontractors. I will have the link, and I'm stealing it from Foreclosurepedia. It's on foreclosurepedia.org, ladies and gentlemen. Foreclosurepedia.org. You're up to the minute fraud reporting in the property preservation industry. And Mitch Davison, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Man, where do you start with that mess? Where do you start with that mess? Photo notes. Yeah. But my big question is this. Let me see here. Only one Guardian Asset Management. Kudos and a tip of the hat to them for your transparency. An update on. I talked with a representative of Wells Fargo. April has, because a lot of people have asked about this. April from Wells Fargo contacted me. I also talked with a realtor named Sarah. To all the people up in Michigan or Maine, I'm sorry. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you're concerned about the industry, do what those people in Maine did. They don't want to see hack work being done. They brought it to my attention. I get a hold of Wells Fargo. We got an investigation going on from the ground up. I think the name of the company is From the Ground I'm a Hack Up. Kind of work is that? That's pathetic. That's disgusting. How dare you do that work and shame and make the good people of this industry look bad? That to me is unconscionable, and you need to be taken out and tarred and feathered for a few minutes, at least half your leg, because that's wrong. That kind of work is unacceptable in any circle, not just, well, hey, I'm telling you, I heard something drop in the background. I go, what was that? She goes, I just dropped my coffee cup. That's what April said when she saw the picture. She dropped her coffee cup. I heard her go, ah. I go, what was that? She goes, I dropped my coffee cup. That's how bad that job is. I mean, think about it. They destroyed corbels. They clearboarded a hole with the frickin' lockbox behind on the doorknob. Oh, and then, by the way, the one they put the hasp and padlock on, they put the frickin' hasp on the outside of the clearboarding and padlock. You couldn't open it. That's insane. That is insane. But the folks up in Maine said, hey, you know what? We don't want to do this. We're not going to let you get away with this. And those are good companies. Those are the people that have a little pride. They hold their head up when they go to work in the morning and they say, hey, look, we're a property preservation company. That's what we do. We take care of your property, your asset. We do a good job. We don't want this involved with us. We don't want anybody thinking that's the kind of work we do. And if politics has shown us anything right now, association can kill you. It can be bad. And I'm sorry, but when you say property preservation, because of all the nonsense and all the mismanaged business organizations and business policies that are out there in this industry, people don't have a high opinion of property preservation contractors because of what has been going on the last 7-8 years. When you talk to people that got into the industry before everything collapsed and the boom hit, as they say, you'll find that all these chargebacks weren't going on. All this stuff wasn't happening. I'm going to tell you. In 2009, Lacey and I go to Austin, Texas. First day we're there, we go sitting around and we get back to the room at night, and Lacey goes, I talked to 3 different people tonight that have sold their business for $1 million and started a new one. I go, what do you mean? I go, how does that work? How does that work? Market absorption would prohibit that. What do you mean? She goes, well, what they do is they keep the contract. What do you mean they keep the contract? How do you sell a business with no contract? They guarantee the work. She goes, what this what this one lady told me, that she kept the contract and she sold basically the territory that she was covering. She sold the coverage area, continued to get the work from FAS, farmed it out at 20%. I looked at her for a minute. I said, wow. I go, we might want to maybe consider that. We're doing pretty good, you know. $70,000 a year, 5 years, people get their $1 million back. We might want to consider that. You know, we were doing about 60, 70 a month at that time. And the next day, you know, after all the seminars and all the training, if you will, because that's what those little seminars and get-togethers are. They want to train you how to do business to assist with their contractual obligations. Always remember that. But we get to walking around 6th Street, going up and down, and, you know, the music and everything. We got back to the room that night. And I said, you know, I've been thinking all day about this. I said, you remember back in the late 70s, your buddies would come to you and say, hey, get in the pyramid with me, get in the pyramid with me. They'd put a buck up and they'd get 2 people to come in the pyramid. Those 2 people would get 2 people, and all the money kept going up. She goes, you know, she goes, I've been thinking the same thing. She goes, there's absolutely no way we're going to do that. That was one of the first good decisions we made. And then when NAMFS came knocking on the door, that was a second decision. And then the other one was not working with Safeguard. But that said, ladies and gentlemen, just something to think about on this issue of labor, employee, all these contracts. Why are people not coming to the local communities to get small business in those communities involved? Does it make sense? Does not make sense to give a company in Texas a contract for Nevada that they cannot supervise. They cannot manage from Texas. It's just that simple. They can't do it. So why, Craig Karnes, are you not having that HUD office in Reno recruit somebody locally for the contract? Why are you not having somebody in Boise, Idaho? I don't know where the offices are. I didn't look them up this morning. But I would think Boise is one of the bigger cities. There's probably a HUD office in Boise. Why aren't the local offices recruiting the talent for these contracts? That is true small business. Not a member of the National Association of Mortgage Field Services going to sub the work out and take money off the top. The numbers don't work once that starts happening. The numbers come to Alliday LLC, and I go out and put supervisors in all the areas, and they deal with the employees in those areas, and I'm writing checks every week. That's how it works. That's how it works for company A, or to be profitable. Not a company subbing the work and taking a percentage. Because first and foremost, best asset, if they were, and let's suppose for a minute, if best asset hired me, I know what the numbers are going to come in as. I got a pretty good general idea. I can't afford to drive to Elko to take care of a property for them. I got to tell them no. Elko's 400 miles away. I'm not driving there for a $500 job. Cut it out. That's an overnight trip. It's an overnight trip. I mean, even if you were to get to Elko, do the job. Let's say the job took 6 hours to do. You're looking at a 20-hour day. I'm not getting paid for that. Not at $500. It's going to cost that much to get there and back. It's going to cost that much in fees. It's going to cost you. So this is what I don't understand. Why isn't Fannie Mae? They have offices in all these states. HUD, offices in all these states. Bank of America, offices in every frickin' state. Wells Fargo, everybody. Why is one company getting the work and pushing it everywhere? You can't QC it, period. You cannot QC it properly because you don't have the local talent there. You're paying out of your pocket. All this outsourcing mentality to save money, it's costing more money. And the people that are suffering from it, labor. Labor. That's who is suffering from what is going on in the property preservation industry, ladies and gentlemen. It needs to stop. I'm going to ask again. Eric Miller, Brian Mingham, Tony Newman, start bringing people to the table, man. We got to do it. It's got to be done. Let's get people to the table. Let's have a conversation. Let's get this industry organized before the IRS wants to, before another agency, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I don't know. It'll be an alphabet agency. You can bet on it, but that who is going to come make the rules. If we, members of property preservation industry, don't all come to the table and say, hey, how are we going to fix this mess? How are we going to fix this mess? My questions to VRM, congratulations on that contract. But if you're doing the property preservation, if you have a preservation division, how are you going to manage that and stay in compliance with the federal rulings on independent contractor employee scenarios right now? And speaking of, ladies and gentlemen, there's another issue going on with the truckers down in LA right now. Independent contractor, it's a misclassification case. It came in. They're employees. They're not independent contractors. They are employees. So it is something to think about if you have a company, because if you're a small company, if you truly are a small company, you're not going to be able to deal with the fines that come in on this. There's a reason Booze Check isn't in business anymore. It's just food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. You need some processing work done? Property Preservation Rescue 911, Candace Cornwall. Look her up. She's on LinkedIn. I'll get a link to her profile page in the description. Oh, my Business 101 tip today. I'm going to put a link. If you're in the restaurant business, I'm going to put a link to a restaurant spreadsheet in the thing. That's my property or my Business 101 tip today. If you're looking to get in the restaurant business, you like food. We all like food, don't we? Hey. We all like food. You got something on the side. You never know. But I'll have a link in the description. It's a spreadsheet for restaurants. It's a good spreadsheet. I looked at it. It's pretty decent. I'm hoping to hear back from Miss Travis Johnson. I sent an email asking a couple questions. I told her I'll send her the podcast link here, and hopefully we can get together over the weekend or something for weekend wrap or between now and then. And I'll have more information on what their thoughts are on that. And I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to get involved in these contracts and you're going to do this subbing the work out, you better make sure, number one, your ducks are in a row, because it's an issue and it's a snowball right now, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the hill's got a long way to go. It's going to be huge when it comes down, and it's snowballing on everybody. So with that said, hopefully we'll have something, a comment or an update on the VMR situation, or VMR. Why I keep calling that VMR? I'm sorry, Miss Travis Johnson. Don't mean to mess your company up there. VRM. And this is actually a company that I've known has been around a long time. Never really heard anything bad about them, so there's probably a reason they got a 10-year contract with the VA. They can probably deliver on stuff. So, that said, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to go. Let's have a great day. Let's all be safe out there, huh?